Hey everybody, this is Darren Sabedra again, Bay Area News Group, Mercury News East Bay Times. We are actually doing a video in late January. It's not football season, but we thought the developments out of the North Coast section late last week, Friday to be exact, warrants us coming on video. Guys, how are you?
Okay.
Doing great.
Yeah. Joseph and I are knee deep into the basketball season, and Mike Lefkow is going to start helping us out here as we move into the playoffs. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk a little football. And well, actually all sports, because all team sports, because the North Coast section's new format affects all team sports. But the big one is football. And Mike Lefkow, we've kind of been discussing the North Coast section for a few years now after seeing a lot of first round blowouts. And Joseph is obviously familiar with that now that he's been with us for 2 full football seasons. A lot of reaction to last week's development that the North Coast section is going to go with a competitive equity format to seed its playoffs rather than the sort of competitive equity model that they've been using for a few years, in which they put teams in enrollment divisions predetermined, and you can move up or down, not off of what happened during that season, but over a 2 or 3 year window of data from the previous 2 or 3 years. They can, the NCS in the previous format would determine which divisions these teams would play in and would lock them in before the playoffs or before the season even started, which caused some teams to miss the playoffs that would have made it in the new format. So Mike Lefkow, we'll start with you, since you've been you've had a lot of opinions over this on this topic over the years. What are your thoughts on the NCS's new competitive equity format?
Well, I like what they've done. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it has been. I looked at some of the mock brackets that we ran, and you look like in Division 1. I think if it were an El Cerrito San Ramon Valley first round game or a Cal Pitt rematch, those are some good games. You're going to have some good games in the first round. You look at Division 2, you would potentially have Las Lomas Campo Lindo and Acalanes Liberty, which would have been a really interesting first round game. So they have made it a lot better. Even if you drop down into the lower divisions, there are some good matchups and there are some interesting matchups. So I like what they've done. I think this was a tweak that was neat, and I'm glad they went that route. And, it'll benefit the other sports as well.
Yeah. Joseph Dycus, you've had some thoughts on this. What do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
To put it simply, it's a thumbs up. I went back to our Monday Morning Lights column about what the data says about CCS and NCS playoffs. And in the NCS, 31 of the 48 games, 65% were decided by 20 points at least. Looking at this new format, I don't think we're going to see as many blowouts, right? There's no way with this new format we're going to see 60-something% of our games be
blowouts, right?
And that's only a good thing, right? Like, I don't think anyone can argue.
It's a good thing. I'll play devil's advocate here. I personally like the new format. I mean, I pushed for it, that I thought that the NCS's previous format had too many just embarrassing mismatches that you shouldn't see in a section playoff. But I'll play devil's advocate here because we've seen some voices on Twitter or X, and it is going to affect some teams. I mean, there are some teams that traditionally do well in some of these other divisions now are going to have to contend with the likes of De La Salle. There are only 2 spots available in that open Division I bracket, which is that 8-team bracket. The NCS went to a format that allows a team to make it to a regional without having to beat De La Salle, which hasn't lost to an NCS team since 1991. I think you guys have heard that before.
We have.
But if you look at that open Division I bracket, De La Salle made it last year as the open champion, and Pittsburgh made it as Division I champion. But you also have Marin Catholic in there, which was the D3 champion in the NCS last season, and you have El Cerrito, which was the D2 champion. Now, I'm not a math whiz, but I know that 4 teams aren't going to be able to go out of that open Division I bracket. Only 2. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are like, well, this is really going to impact the NCS moving forward into the regionals, where you're not going to be putting your strongest teams in there because they're now going to be all moved up into the 8-team open/Division I bracket. Mike Lefkow, I'll start with you. That's one of the negatives. There's no perfect system. But how do you think it's going to affect things moving forward in terms of NorCal bids? I mean, is the NCS going to be sending teams that don't belong there?
Well, I mean, that's a possibility. When, again, I look at the mock brackets, if you look at D1, you would have had, El Cerrito, San Ramon Valley, Pittsburgh, and Marin Catholic. And was San Marin also?
San Marin was in there too.
Yeah, they all moved forward, and that would not be possible in this new format. But I think it's more important to do it this way and have good section playoffs than worry about which teams might move forward into NorCal and then how they would fare in NorCal. I mean, I like this format. Again, like you said, it's not perfect. There's
no perfect system.
Perfect system.
You cannot have a perfect system. And are you worried? I thought the great quote in our story on Friday from Pat Cruikshank, where he said, "This isn't about championship equity. This is about competitive equity." And what he means by that is they want competitive playoffs. So CCS went this way because they wanted competitive playoffs. I think one of the things in the NCS that is better than the CCS is the CCS's current format is that teams cannot move more. They put every team in a base division based on enrollment. Now, that means nothing, to tell you the truth. I mean, still, you're going to have your 8 best teams, no matter if they came from D7, D6, D5, or D1 in that open Division I bracket. You're going to have your 8 best teams, qualifying teams, according to the Max Preps computer rankings, going into the seeding meeting. Your 8 best teams are going to be in the open Division I bracket, but they put every team in a base. I mean, De La Salle almost had a heart attack because they saw that they were in Division II. Well, De La Salle's not going to be in Division II, but that's their base based on enrollment. So teams out of the division at the Division I level in terms of enrollment, they can't drop more than 2 spots down. So you see in their mock setup here, James Logan would have dropped down to Division III. In the CCS format, teams can drop in the old enrollment divisions. They could drop from one of the larger schools all the way down to their lowest division. The NCS is not going to have that. You can only move up or down 2 divisions unless you get moved into the open. Then you can move up, theoretically, you can move up 7 spots. You can move up 7 divisions. If you're in Division 7 and you're one of the top 8 teams in NCS in terms of the computer ranking, you're going to be shoved up into the open.
Which I guess there is the argument of that I think we've heard is if you are a really good Division 6 or Division 7 team, and the computers say that you are one of the 8 best teams in NCS, are you punishing that Division 7 team that realistically can't compete with?
Well, we don't know if they realistically can or cannot. We assume they cannot. I mean, everybody says, well, the depth level or whatever. I mean, if you have 40 good football players at a school with 200 students, you're still going to be pretty darn good. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we see that all the time. At
Well,
some of the
I
private
think
schools.
Joseph raises a good point. Like in looking at these mock brackets, I don't know for sure what the enrollment is at San Marin High School, but I would be a little reluctant to see San Marin in Division One, just as I kind of spoke out about Campo Lindo being in Division One. I mean, these schools, you're kind of punishing a great coach for being successful. I mean, that's the only problem I have with it. Campo Lindo is a very well coached team, so they would exceed expectations most years. Now suddenly they're playing San Ramon Valley in Division One, and is this going to be the situation with San Marin? Now, last season, San Marin did beat Marin Catholic in a regular season game, but Marin Catholic is a private school. San Marin is a public school, and I think.
But if they were good enough last season, then that's where they are that season. If they're not good enough, and I'm guessing that you're going to see some teams not schedule. They're going to try to schedule where within their range, so their computer ranking isn't going to be. Now, I'm not saying people are going to throw games or anything, but I'm talking about you can schedule now. You don't have to schedule within your division, or you can schedule games now, assuming that the other team is going to accept your offer, where you might not necessarily, where you know that teams coming out of the EBAL or teams coming out of some of the stronger leagues in the NCS are going to have a better computer rating than your team, right?
Oh, definitely. And I think that I agree, this is going to be reflected over the next few years. I mean, again, if you go back to these mock brackets, my guess is Clayton Valley was talking about how it played 5 division champions or league champions last season, and that's why it went 5-5, or one of the reasons. Now, I think you'll continue to see Clayton Valley being a charter school, being able to get some extra kids in. They will go ahead and schedule top-notch non-league teams, so they can be in Division One, or at the top of Division Two, where they'd have a real chance of advancing. So I think you're going to see that.
No doubt you're going to see some of that type of stuff. What do you think of, like, I mean, if you look, let's spotlight the Division III mock bracket. And you see Antioch there, which didn't make the playoffs in the previous format because they were one of the 8. They were locked into Division One, open Division One, and there were 8 teams that qualified,
right,
which were placed ahead of them, and so they were left out. Now they get in. James Logan would drop down. They've played De La Salle 3 years in a row as the 8th seed in the open Division One bracket. They now suddenly would find themselves in a Division III situation that seems winnable. You got Granada in there, Rancho Cotati, Vintage, Redwood, Berkeley, and Heritage in the mock bracket from last season. Is that bracket? I mean, a lot of people are going to look at that bracket. Is that bracket worthy of sending a team to a regional? Mike Lefkow, what do you think? I mean, and then you're going to have some teams out of that open Division One bracket left out.
Well, I mean, obviously, that would be a good question. I mean, I think Antioch might be a team you could send to a regional if they have a good team, but the other teams in there, well, I mean, Heritage, yes, is a possibility. Berkeley is a possibility. Logan, yeah, I mean, they're all big enough schools that they could put together that powerhouse football team and get into a regional. But, I mean, right now, you're saying, okay, you're suddenly leaving out maybe an El Cerrito, or you're leaving out I don't know about a San Marin, but maybe you're leaving out, if you look in Division II, you're leaving out a Campo Lindo or a Nacalanes or a Liberty. And yeah, that's a trade-off. Maybe not a good trade-off, but I don't know. Is it supposed to be about going to the regionals or winning your section?
I mean, I have 2 thoughts on that. First of all, think about last year, let's say in the CCS, where South San Francisco has a really good year, right? They go, I believe it's 12-2, but they're not better than, say, Wilcox. They're not better than the Division I teams that lost, right? They're not better than Reardon. Is anyone going to argue that, oh, well, the CCS is not sending isn't some deserving teams in CCS Division I aren't getting a chance to go to a regional game. Instead, we have smaller schools in Division 5, Division 4 going there instead.
But you also had a situation where, so South San Francisco won Division 5, correct?
Yes.
And Palo Alto won Division 4 after winning Division 5 last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were a large school in the traditional sense of CCS, in the old formats. They were always way up there. Now, their program isn't at the level of a Sarah or a St. Francis or, Wilcox or Los Gatos. And so they're down, they finish in the middle of the pack of their league, or, in some cases even lower than that. And then they make it into the playoffs as a Division 4 or Division 5 team. One of the things I like, and then we mentioned this a little earlier, that the NCS, in the CCS, you could say, because they seed their playoffs from 1 through 40, 8, then 8, then 8. So basically, if you're looking at the Division 5 champion, that's basically the 33rd best team in CCS, right? You can't do that with the NCS if they're only allowing teams to move up or down 2. So, the top 8 are in, and you would think that the next 8 are going to be, 9 through 16, but not necessarily the case. If teams can only move up 1 or 2 divisions, if they can only move up or down 2 divisions. But we're still going to have the situation, which it seems to be, in this competitive equity format, where some teams are going to get really lucky and be the 9th team or the 17th team in a bracket, meaning that they're the 1 seed in the next division down, rather than the last seed in division, let's say open Division 1. You'd rather be Clayton Valley if Clayton Valley really was going to be the number 1 seed in Division 2.
Mm-hmm.
You would not want to be Amador, which would be the number 8 seed in open Division 1.
Well, one thing I'm going to bring up, and one of the things I don't like about these formats, whether they're CCS or NCS, is I think you have to have a little flexibility. Even if, the seeding sets up where Clayton Valley is the number 1 seed in Division 2. Hey, Clayton Valley was 5-5 this past season. I looked at the 5 teams that beat them. The average score of their losses was 35-7. Yeah, they played a lot of good teams, but they lost by an average score of 35-7 in their regular season defeats. Clayton Valley, in my mind, does not belong either as the number 8 seed in Division 1 or the number 1 seed in Division 2. If I'm sitting there, I think you drop Clayton Valley to the number 8 seed in Division 2 and make them play the number 1 seed in Division 1. In other words, you say to Clayton, okay, you're going to be in Division 2. You're going to be in the playoffs at 5-5, but you're going to have to play a tough group of teams to get out of here.
You mean the 8th? They would be the 8th seed in Division 2.
They would be the 8th seed in Division
and play the 1
2.
seed in Division 2.
If you went by the mocks, Windsor would have moved up to that spot.
I don't think Windsor wants to be.
Yeah, I was saying I don't think Windsor.
That's not fair, because even if their record's 5-5, that's still you're looking at punishing the second seed. Clayton Valley's 5-5, and their strength of schedule and whatever they've done is the reason their computer ranking leaves them as the 1 seed in Division 2.
Right. Okay. But
you don't want to mess with the bracket and have them play Windsor in the first. Windsor's not going to want to play them in the first round.
No, of course not. Windsor and either's Camp Olinda or Las Lomas or Acalanes. Maybe
So
Liberty.
instead in this mock bracket, I assume they would have been playing Tamalpais.
Oh, Clayton?
Yeah.
Yeah, Clayton would have been playing. Yeah, they would have been playing. They would have been the home team against Tamalpais.
Right.
And
which I think for the integrity of the bracket, that's probably how it should be.
Yeah, but what would Tamalpais? Would Tamalpais want to play him?
No, but the Tamalpais is 8 for a reason there, I assume. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. You can't punish the teams by moving them to the eights. That just affects the two seed here in Division Two. Like I said, they don't want to play Windsor in the first year. Windsor doesn't
No,
want
I
to.
understand that, but I mean, the thing is that I think you do need some flexibility to move teams around a little bit, and not just where the criteria puts them.
Yeah, but
I mean, come on, you go back to you can beat an old subject. I mean, the one thing this does not cure is that the publics and the privates should be separated in the playoffs, and this is another example of why the publics and the privates need to be separated. Patrick Walsh has said this. A lot of the public school coaches are saying this. I mean, let's not kid each other. I mean, that's the big problem, is that they won't separate the public schools and the private schools. You have a few public schools that can play with the private schools.
Well, the problem in the NCS, and I just looked at the top two brackets. You've got two private schools out of the 16 teams in those two brackets. It's so different from the CCS, where you would have the entire WCAL in the first two brackets in terms of strength of schedule.
Well, yeah, there is a difference.
I mean, it's like you only have De La Salle and Marin Catholic. That's the reason that the NCS has this problem, is you only have a couple of private schools that play at this very,
level.
Very high level.
Right.
Because after that you go down to then it gets to Cardinal Newman, good team, Bishop O'Dowd, solid team, Moreau Catholic, Salesian. Are those
if you want to talk about a mismatch in the mock brackets, a potential first round matchup between Cardinal Newman and Deer Valley? I mean, come on. Now we're back to the 48 to 48
70 to 7 games.
I hate to put down Deer Valley. They've really improved under this new coach. But the thing is it's still going to be a wipeout in the first round if you have Cardinal Newman playing Deer Valley.
I don't know if we can. I mean, that would not be a good game. I'm not going to argue, but I don't think we're ever going to truly be able to eliminate, every single blowout in the first round.
No.
I think this system, there's still going to be blowouts, but I'm just looking at the bracket. I think the likelihood of 65% of the games being decided by 20 points, probably not going to happen.
And when the CIF seeds the regionals, they do it by these computer rankings after the section playoffs. So,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the teams who came out of the CCS, they're going to put them in the same pool, right?
Right.
They're going to be in the same. They're not going to. Just because you win Division 2 or Division 3 NCS doesn't mean you're going to play a Division 2 or Division 3 team out of another section, because every section is different.
Well, I mean, again, I've long been a proponent is that the sections play by the same rules, not 10 sections, 10 different rules. That's for another video. Yeah, it is, but that's a big problem that California has.
Let's start with closing thoughts. I'm going to start tip of the cap to the NCS. I think this is long overdue, and I am looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds. And as Pat Cruikshank told me on Friday, if tweaks need to be made moving forward, tweaks will be made. But this is a starting point, and I think the section, even though it wasn't a unanimous vote, it was 30-13 by the Board of Managers. I think this is a major step in the right direction, and the way California has been going in pretty much every sport. I think the Southern section is doing the exact same thing, it sounds like. So tip of the cap to NCS. Joseph Dycus, you can go next, and then Mike Lefkow.
Yeah, I've been here for 2 years. We talked about it both years. I didn't really think that anything would change in the NCS. So I was pretty surprised when I heard you tell me, hey, I just heard that the NCS is basically changing it to this new format. So surprising. And then to go to a different sport for a second, you mentioned in your story here that this doesn't just affect football. Like last year in girls basketball, Piedmont went 27-1, and they were down in Division 4 playing in the entire NCS playoffs, beating teams by 40 points until you got to NorCal Open. Now It looks like if this system had been in place before, Piedmont would have been in NCS Open where they should have been last year. So this also has ramifications for other sports, and I think it'll improve those other sports.
Very good. Mike Lefkow, closing thoughts.
Yeah, again, a big tip of the cap to Pat Krushink and the NCS sport. I think that they are really trying to set up a format that'll benefit everyone, and that's important. And just his comment that, they'll make more tweaks if they have to. If they find that there are problems, they'll make more tweaks to improve it. So I think they're listening to the coaches and the athletic directors at the different high schools, and I think they want to improve things. And I think this is a big step in the right direction. And based on what Cruikshank said, I tend to think they'll keep taking steps to improve it some more. I don't think this is the last tweak they'll make.
Very good. Well, this one wasn't a tweak. This was a major format change. So.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that they will continue to listen to the coaches. They'll continue to listen to the athletic directors. And if they need to make some tweaks in the future, they will. I think they want to do what's right. This sounds like they want to do what's right.
Very good. Well, guys, thanks for joining. We will do this again as we get closer to the season, which is still months and months away, right?
Months and months away. Yeah.
We have some hoops to get through. We have spring sports, Lefty's favorite season, right? Lefty, you got baseball coming up.
Well, no, in terms of high school, my favorite is still football.
Still football.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2 is baseball.
Yeah, number 2 would be baseball.
Right. My computer keeps going in and out, I think, a little bit. I'm going to take myself off video, but thanks again. And we'll get this posted on the Mercury News and East Bay Times websites, and we'll reconvene at a later date.